You are listening to the Fire Rescue Athlete Podcast with your host, Aaron Zamzow.
Hey everybody, Aaron Zamzow with the Fire Rescue Athlete Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. See, today I got a personal question for you. What is your why? Why do you work out? Why should you work out, I should say, if you don't? What really motivates you to stay in shape and to stay fit for duty? For me personally, this whole thing started, Fire Rescue Fitness started about 14 years ago when I went and joined the volunteer fire department in my community, which was up in Golden Valley, Minnesota. And I went through my very first academy. I realized that even though I was a trainer, worked with athletes and thought I was in pretty good shape, when I went through that first academy, I realized that I was not in good shape functionally for firefighting. You know, you can stand there and do a tricep push down or a bench press, but that does not transfer onto the fire ground, as well as actively training and working out with, doing carries, climbs, crawls, hoists and lifts and drags and such. So my why became at that point 14 years ago that I never wanted to look at my fellow coworkers, my crewmates, my department members, and even my family for that matter, and say that my fitness let me down and that I wasn't fit enough to accomplish a task. Now, let me go off on a little tangent here, because I know what a lot of us are thinking is, hey, you can't prepare physically for everything on the fire ground, because sometimes crap happens, and it doesn't matter how good a shape you're in or how fit or how strong you are. Bad things happen, and I understand that. My comeback to that is, look, in the fire service, we constantly train and prepare to minimize all risk, right? So that's our goal. Any situation, we try to look at what's going on in front of us, read smoke, read the environment, look for environmental clues, make decisions that will minimize our chances of risk. And I look at fitness as the same thing and approach fitness the same way. And I hope that you will, or you do the same personally, because you want to minimize your risk. And I think that the more you work out and the more strong you are, lean you are, the more healthy you are, you're just minimizing your risk and your chances to, let your crew down physically or your department down. So personally, I work out for that reason, for my crew, and then for my family, for my department, my community. I also want to set that good example. So relating this back to you, what is your why? And if you don't have one, how can you get one? For some, I've been working with a lot of fire rescue athletes now with Fire Rescue Fitness for over 10 years. And a lot of them talk about one particular instance or one particular call where they realized that their fitness was letting them down, and that they were jeopardizing not only their own health, but that of their crew and their family because they just let themselves go. If you are at that point, I hope that you will reach out to me and Fire Rescue Fitness. We have resources for you that can get you right back on track. If you know of someone that is at that point or maybe at that point, if you could point them towards our way here, either via the podcast or via firerescuefitness.com, I'd love to help people out. I love reading about stories where people said, hey, I was at a house fire and I was dragging hose line in and I was totally out of breath and I could barely catch my breath. And I realized that I was the guy that was letting my crew down, and I made a commitment at that point to get fit. I've had a lot of athletes do that. I've actually had one athlete lose over 100 pounds over the last couple of years. So, it can be done, and it doesn't matter what level of fitness you're in. I mean, personally, you go through waves of, I call them seasons. There's a time where you're in really good shape and then you kind of step back a little bit. And that's when it's really important to go back to your why and focus on that, especially, like I said, when motivation is kind of lacking. If you go back and really think about why you're doing it, and who you're doing it for, meaning your workouts and your fitness, I think it'll help go a long, long way. So just like you would, study to get better at your craft, a lot of times departments do things with reading smoke and fire attack and extrication and vehicle, awareness with how to extricate out of vehicles and EMS. I think you should dedicate that time also to your fitness. So create a why and, write it down and let that motivate you. I have a link to a post with a video that explains some of this. I also have a link for FRF body weight assessment. And a lot of times this body weight assessment helps me stay on track and gives me an indicator of where I am on my fitness. And I think that's also an important thing, is to do self-evaluations. I talked earlier in one of the podcasts about cancer, and a yearly annual physical is one of the ways to combat cancer. I also try to do a body weight assessment or some type of fitness assessment every year on my own. So I monitor and I can really get an idea of where my level of fitness is. Now, it also, for me, I'm kind of competitive, so I want to try to do the same every year, if not improve. And that FRF body weight assessment is a great tool for that. I actually kind of do it every 6 weeks just to see if I can improve or stay the same, depending upon what my goal is. So there is a link to that as well. I hope that helps you create your why, because if you struggle at that, I'm sure that, or I want you to say, all right, it's time for me to get back in shape. So again, find your why, find the reasons, what internally motivates you. If you don't have that, do a fitness assessment, see where you're at, and also look around, as you're doing trainings and everything. If you are saying to yourself, man, I don't want to do that training because I don't know if I could physically do it. You got to be honest with yourself and do something about your fitness, because if you're saying that to yourself during training, you are a liability. You just don't know when you're going to need your fitness. So you want to make sure that it's there. So with that, find your why, let it motivate you, find some motivation, and then go do something about it. I hope this helps you a little bit. Utilize the links. Please send me some questions. We'll keep this podcast going. Again, thanks for listening to the Fire Rescue Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions and need some resources on workout programs and nutrition, you can also look me up at firerescuefitness.com. Stay safe. Get FRF. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Fire Rescue Athlete Podcast with your host, Aaron Zamzow. Please tune in again soon for more fitness tips for fire rescue athletes.